Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of the Dream Stream, and kind of a strange face around these Dream Stream parts. Javi Prellezo on the back-to-back here on a Monday, jumping in last second to continue to break down this 11-game slate with me, Javi. So I was just watching you with Kyle Murray, but I missed the beginning of the stream. So how you doing today? How'd your NFL Sunday go? How you feeling?
NFL Sunday went very well. Made a little bit of a profit. Should have been more, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. So instead, we are going to win all the money, even though our boy last night, Alize Johnson, did not play, that jackass. But it is what it is. We move on to the next day, right?
Let me tell you something, man. I noticed the effort you have put into pronouncing Alize's name correctly over the last couple of days. So that's good on you. Good on you, my friend. Well, like I said, man, we got 11 games tonight. You guys just did a great game-by-game breakdown. So I think we can kind of just take a look at Eddie and mine's ranks. We can go over. I saw you posted a kind of a sexier 7 today in the Discord. We can talk about that, and we can take questions and a little bit of direction from our FTN NBA subscribers in that Discord channel. But first, we're brought to you, as always, every day by Superdraft Daily Fantasy. So if you haven't played on Superdraft yet, if you're not familiar, the main game over there is a multiplier mode rather than a salary cap, Javi. And so sometimes if you're just starting on Superdraft, you need a little bit of a primer. We've got a comprehensive site breakdown at ftndaily.com. So if you need a little extra information on Superdraft, you can find it there. Then you go to superdraft.io, you get registered, sign up, and you use the promo code FTN. And on any deposit, of $100 or more, Superdraft's going to give you $100 in bonus funds. So pretty sweet deal over there to get signed up at Superdraft. And we thank them for sponsoring today's Dream Stream. So Javi, we're getting some news rolling in here. And actually a piece of news that we didn't really have on the docket. Chris Duarte ruled out for the Pacers tonight. So let's start there because I think we've been prepared for news like Jalen Suggs sitting. We'll get into that. Jarrett Allen also ruled out with his illness. We will talk about the Cavs. But with Chris Duarte out, I imagine we'll see Justin Holiday slide into the starting lineup here. So first reaction hearing that the rookie is out for the Pacers.
I don't think it matters too much for me. The reason is because there's already a ton of high usage guys like LeVert, Brogdon, Sabonis, Turner. So, it doesn't really affect me too much, really, Zach. I'm taking that news with a grain of salt, and it's not really affecting anything I do today. So that's how I would start that out. I wouldn't overreact to Duarte out personally. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but there's just a ton of other plays that I prefer.
I think there's an interesting conversation to be had as I take Chris Duarte out of the rankings and insert Torrey Craig, because I think he becomes, unfortunately, on the DFS side of things, a pretty big part of this rotation, even if he's off the bench. Not going to pick up a good rank, obviously, because Torrey Craig may be the face of the Fitbit team in the NBA, even despite his outburst a few games ago. But I think to me, it's going to open up a few more shots for guys like Karis LeVert. And probably disperse. I'll check on, obviously it's a small sample size at this point of the season, and Duarte being a rookie, the Pacers have had a lot of injuries and rest guys to open up the year. So probably not a great sample size here when we talk about Chris Duarte being out, but in the 14 games that they have played, and Duarte has played all 14, it looks like TJ McConnell is the one that's going to benefit from the usage perspective. McConnell, Justin Holiday, kind of the guys that I would expect, and those two guys also picking up the most minutes so far this season with Duarte out. Again, maybe skewed a little bit because we haven't had Karis LeVert for the full season. Malcolm Brogdon has missed some games. Jeremy Lamb has missed some games. So I think I'm with you where it doesn't change too much for me as far as the rest of this team goes. I think if we do get Justin Holiday starting, it's a slight bump to him at 3.9 guard forward eligible on DraftKings. He's coming off a 33.5 DraftKings point game. I don't think we can rely on him going 6 of 8 from 3 every night, but it's definitely somebody who I wouldn't call you crazy for rostering here. So we can circle back on any questions that people have about the Pacers, but I think I'm with you. It's not a huge boost. A lot of these guys are priced correctly, I think, or maybe even a little expensive at this point. You look at somebody like Miles Turner, 6'7", been producing at a fine rate, but I mean, dude, his stocks are out of this world right now. 8 stocks, 4 stocks, 6 stocks, 6 stocks in his last 4 games. I don't think, Miles Turner, obviously fantastic rim protector, averaging almost 3.5 blocks per game, but 6 a game, I don't think is very sustainable. So let's talk about Cleveland, because I know you and Kyle kind of did a deep dive on Cleveland if Jarrett Allen was out, and he is going to sit with that illness, non-COVID illness, as far as we know, and they will actually go smaller. One of the teams that has been the biggest in their starting lineup so far this season, going smaller with Garland, Rubio into the starting lineup, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, and Evan Mobley at the 5. What strikes your fancy from this Cavaliers team, if anything, against Boston?
I mean, nothing. No, I'm just kidding. Really, this lowest total on the board, Zach. We saw this game recently. We saw Tatum, massive floor game. He broke my heart a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's just going to be, I think it's going to be an ugly game either way. If Boston doesn't blow them out, and I understand the spread's close, and people were letting me know that the spread's close. And I understand Boston really not blowing anybody out of the water, but yeah, I just think that this is just a gross game. We saw it recently, so it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I think that, Jarrett Allen out. He has been struggling lately. He hasn't been getting the massive minutes that he usually is. And it's really because of foul trouble and game script and all the works there. So, yeah, this does help out Mobley, but I'm not overreacting to it either. Like, I think a lot of people are going to go to Mobley, and then that eats up a ton of your salary. What if Damian Lillard is out? I mean, there is some sources there that say he was just getting normal rest game yesterday, but what if he is out? CJ McCollum and Anthony Simons become 2 of the top plays in the slate, in my opinion. Fred VanVleet's out. What does that mean? Gary Trent, Pascal Siakam, they become 2 very strong plays on the slate. And they play at 10 p.m., I think it is, 10 p.m. Eastern.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is
you're
just
right.
Yeah, I think this is just I would not. I would say, honestly, if you're doing one lineup, I would just save it for later. And worst case scenario, if you have to pivot, like if Damian Lillard's out, yeah, I don't like Simons. I don't like Siakam. I don't like McCollum. Move to the Bulls and Lakers game, which I think is another amazing game in my opinion. And it's not like you're basically risking it all there, because I think that's a phenomenal game to target. And it's a sneaky game stack. Like, Lakers are struggling defensively. Same thing with VanVleet. I think VanVleet is a fine play against Portland, but not going to be a focus with him or Siakam or even Gary Trent, who's overpriced on both sides. But, I mean, honestly, you can easily move all your salary to that Lakers and Chicago game if it doesn't. But I would build around Jokic. I think he's a phenomenal play with no Barton too, which we can touch on in a second. I love Bam Adebayo still. So those are basically my 2 centers. And then, of course, Spencer Dinwiddie is still a phenomenal play. No Bradley Beal. So there's a few things you can do. Really, I'm just locking in Spencer Dinwiddie in my main lineup and then playing all late exposure. I know that was a lot, Zach, but I think that's what I would do in a single entry today.
Hey, man, as somebody who is frequently, the co-pilot on a Fast Eddie Fear show, I am used to long diatribes from my partner here. So, and I can be a bit of a windbag myself at times. I do think you make a great point about trying to hold off flexibility and salary in your lineups because of all that late news that's coming. 9 of these games will tip off by 8 Eastern, and then those 2 games that you talked about tipping off at 10 and 10:30 Eastern, respectively. So I think there is an advantage to be had in building your lineups that way. But when it just comes to Cleveland in a vacuum, like, Evan Mobley is probably going to play unless this game truly blows out. And I don't see this going to, being a Boston 25-point lead going into the fourth quarter. It's like a 3.5-point spread. Boston's without Jaylen Brown, and Cleveland's been feisty this year. And Jared Allen has been a big part defensively, but Evan Mobley's been great too, and his minutes have been obviously, for lack of a better term, near the stratosphere, almost 40 minutes against Boston 2 nights ago. I think Evan Mobley's a very solid play at 7-2. We really haven't seen that 50-plus DK point upside yet. But if he's going to do it in any spot, it's here with Jarrett Allen not on the court. Mobley going to be more around the basket, more rebounding opportunities opening up, things like that. I also think Rubio now getting into the starting lineup at 6K is somewhere that I would have interest. Point guard only on DraftKings, but just kind of solidifies his minutes floor. I would be surprised if we see less than 30 out of Rubio tonight, and he's been productive enough where I think if you're running multiple lineups, he's somebody you should consider. And then if you're running 150, having guys like Chetty Osman, who should play into the upper 20s in minutes, wouldn't be surprised if he touched 30. Isaac Okoro now kind of getting back into the swing of things. I think we could see him also exceed 30 minutes. Just kind of very much secondary value plays, but would be in my pool if I was building an MME build. Let's just touch real quick on the other side of this game. How do you feel about Jason Tatum sub 10K without Jaylen Brown? I think that's always in play, but is he anywhere near a priority for you?
No, as you said, we saw recently this game, and Cleveland's been tough defensively, and it could be because of Jared Allen, but it's not something that I'm really focusing around. I just prefer other spend. I feel like Jokic is essential. I think Bam is essential, even if Jimmy Butler's in. I mean, obviously, I would love Bam more if Jimmy Butler was out, but he's going against OKC. Who's going to cover? Do we really think Jeremiah Robinson-Earl is going to shut down Bam Adebayo? No. So, I mean, I think Bam Adebayo is a phenomenal play from top to bottom. Again, I prefer if Jimmy's out, but I think focusing on this, Jokic, CJ McCollum, if Damian Lillard's out, and building around that is just essential in my opinion. So, I see Herm talking about in chat too, Rubio's ownership is going to, it's not going to be low. It's going to spike. Yeah, it's going to spike a little bit. But again, it's not a game environment I want. I don't want the Celtics really. And I understand, Dennis Schroeder is chucking up shots left and right, but I just think this is going to be an ugly game. And it's the lowest total for a reason, Zach. So.
Yeah, and Cleveland, to your point, the lowest team total on the slate, under 98 points. Last I checked, we've actually got two teams under 100. The Cavs being one, and then the Thunder on the other side of that Miami game, looking like under 100 points for the Thunder at home. So let's talk a little bit more about that Heat team, because I think if you're worried about the blowout in Boston and Cleveland, or I know there was a lot of talk on Phoenix, Minnesota on the previous show. You got to be worried about the blowout here, right? Like Heat are almost double-digit favorites on the road, and to your point, there's nobody to slow down Bam. There's not really anybody to slow down anyone on this team. Like Luguentz Dort can only guard one person at a time. So if Jimmy Butler's healthy, I think I would personally stay away from the Heat in this one, just because I think they can kind of spread out the production. And I don't really want to play roulette with that. But I do agree with you. If I'm going one place on this Miami team, it is Bam, because you see the best chance for Bam to be slowed down by this Oklahoma City team is Derek Favors, and he's taking his turn to rest after Mike Muscala rested last night on the front end of a back-to-back. So anything else to add on that game?
No, I mean, if Derek Favors is in, I'd be a little bit worried about Bam, just a little bit, but I'm not worried about our boy JRE to cover Bam. So and he facilitates the ball a lot too. Like Bam does, it's not, I wouldn't say legit triple double upside, but he's got the potential to have that. So I think Bam is fine. And if Jimmy Butler's out, this game could stay a little bit closer, but they should still blow him out. So
let's talk about these two late games, because I think both you and I agree that it's important to have pieces of these games. I think regardless of which way the news breaks on these teams, I think they're attractive fantasy environments. Both 1.5 point spreads in favor of the Blazers at home, and then the Bulls actually favored on the road against the Lakers. So let's start with Chicago and the Lakers, because here's the player that I would lock in. If I was running 150 lineups tonight, I'm biting the bullet. I'm locking in Talon Horton-Tucker at min price. I can't get away from it. He played 27 minutes in his debut. And like, if you think about any other time that we've wanted to play Talon Horton-Tucker with LeBron out in previous seasons, right? Like this at min price, like we've been excited to lock him in at like 4-2 before with LeBron out. And we saw yesterday against the Spurs, Russell Westbrook and Anthony Davis being on the court with THT is not going to slow him down in terms of usage. 14 shots in his 27 minutes yesterday. So I don't see a way I can get away from him, especially because he's guard forward eligible. Are you with me on Talon Horton-Tucker, or are you kind of pumping the brakes?
No, I'm with you. Again, 3K, I hate to say it's a free square, but pretty much is a free square, especially if he starts. I mean, you got to eat that chalk, in my opinion. So, yeah, I like Talon Horton-Tucker. I agree with you. I think somebody that's leaning toward, I wouldn't say a lot, but I'd playing probably half my 150 is Alex Caruso. If he gets big minutes, revenge narrative maybe, Lonzo Ball revenge narrative, it could be some revenge narratives here. So Alex Caruso with the minutes, again, he's not been a big point per minute guy this season, but in recent years he was, and he gets defensive stats. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Alex Caruso getting into that Bulls starting lineup last night against the Clippers. They're on that Staples Center back-to-back here. So against the Lakers tonight, good point. If you needed any extra oomph to put Alex Caruso in your lineups tonight, coming back to Los Angeles and playing his old team tonight is certainly a revenge narrative that I can buy into. 39 minutes last night for Caruso in that start. So I need to make sure I ranked him high enough. I'm not sure if I ranked him, or Eddie and I ranked him high enough in terms of where I think he should be tonight. So I appreciate you jogging my memory on that. Lonzo Ball, I have a tougher time getting to just because his usage has been so down this season. Even with Vucevic off the court, like it's all DeMar and Zach LaVine, and Lonzo Ball is really relying on those peripheral stats and shoot. Let's take the last 5 games, for instance. Game log watching isn't everything in DFS, but hasn't cracked 26 and 3/4 DK points in 4 of his last 5. And the one game he did touch 43, he shot 7 of 10 from 3. So we're really relying on some hot shooting from Lonzo at this point of the season for him to get on top of this price tag. Could it happen? Absolutely. And he's got all the incentive in the world to try to put it on the Lakers tonight. But just because of who he's sharing the court with, it's tough for me to get there at his middling price tag. I think I would rather choose between Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. And if I'm doing that, Javi, I'm preferring LaVine. I believe took 10 more shots than DeMar last night, despite getting outscored by nearly 7 DraftKings points. I think I'm rolling with LaVine again. What would you do if you had to choose between those two guys?
Yeah, no, it's going to be LaVine also. I also think DeRozan, not necessarily, I don't think it's going to happen, but he could have 80 on defense. So if that's the case, there's a chance that 80 does play the 5, so he doesn't have to worry about it. But if that's the case, it's not going to be pretty. So I'm a little worried about defensive matchup. But again, I was worried about it yesterday, and DeRozan crushed against Paul George. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not too concerned with either one, but I do lean LaVine here. I'm waiting for that ceiling game with no Vooch, and he hasn't had it yet. And it could be today. I mean, we've seen your boy DeJounte Murray just have 2 career games pretty much against the Lakers this season. So pace is up. Defense has gotten worse for the Lakers, so I like it.
Yeah, so I mentioned my love for Talon Horton-Tucker. He's one of 3 players that are sitting at 10s right now in the DraftKings rankings. Anthony Davis is another one, and kind of alluding to it in this game a little bit. Nikola Vucevic out. Tony Bradley, long, lanky arms, not a huge guy. Like, I don't think he's going to do much in the way of slowing down Anthony Davis, especially if Anthony Davis starts at the 5. Alize Johnson is not a center in terms of just his physical stature. Obviously, he plays some small ball 5 from time to time. And then, who else are you bringing in? Tyler Cook, maybe to do a little work against Anthony Davis. I just don't see how Chicago has any chance of stopping this guy tonight. So at 10-4, I think he is probably the guy. If I'm trying to spend up for 2 players tonight on DraftKings, it's going to be a Jokic, Anthony Davis pairing for me. up top, and I think you can easily get to that. I think there's a lot of good value. I think you mentioned maybe Luka being your other favorite spend up. If you had to pair somebody with Jokic 10K and above, who's it going to be?
It's probably going to be AD. It won't
Okay.
be Jokic. I just think that AD is going to, and he played the 5 last time, and Kyle
Yeah.
alluded to that and made a great point. So I mean, who's going to guard AD on the Bulls? No Vooch is a hurt for them. So yeah, I like going. I like going AD as my other spend. I think Luka's fine, but I don't know. I feel like it's chasing this game, and Denver's actually been solid defensively. A little bit worse against the guard. But I'm not going to go to Luka today. I don't like what I've seen from him this season. I don't know if you've watched Luka at all.
Oh yeah.
You being the Texas boy you are. I'm just kidding. But I just don't like at all the way Luka's been playing this year. It's just been a rough start. Maybe it's rust. Maybe it's just struggles. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to wait and see a little bit more.
One thing we really haven't touched on is the fact that Kobe White is supposed to make his season debut for the Bulls tonight. I think that's really going to push. Here's a guy that I have trouble saying his name, Ayo Dosunmu. Maybe you can correct me on that, or I'm sure some Bulls or Illinois fan can do that for me. I think that's really going to push him out of the rotation as we go forward. Maybe he doesn't get a DNP tonight. But at 6'2", Kobe White, don't think he got any G League games in. I think he just practiced with the Bulls affiliate. So the fact that he hasn't seen any game action outside of, any live contact scrimmages, which the Bulls probably aren't doing at this point, especially since they're so shorthanded here in the middle of the season. I don't think Kobe White gets anywhere near the number of minutes that we would need to see at this 6'2" price tag. Thinking about that, would that discourage you from playing an Alex Caruso at all? Or do we just think that, he's going to take Ayo minutes and it's not really going to affect the rest of the rotation?
Yeah,
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think he's going to take Ayo minutes. Again, I don't want Kobe White. I think he's going to be severely limited here. We could see Caruso play less because of him being here, but yeah, I'm not feeling it too much. So, Dosunmu.
Rob,
Look at Rob, legend Rob. Not experiment, but I think it's Ayo Dosunmu. All right, well there you go. No. So
well, now I know. So that
I think Caruso, yeah, but just to go back to, I think Caruso's minutes are still safe. Like he could still see 30+ minutes here in a great matchup, revenge matchup. So. We could see it. So everyone just roasted me. I was just trying to help out, guys. All right.
Dosunmu.
Right.
Naraki not helping me at all. Let's talk Toronto and Portland, where I'm pretty sure I can pronounce all the names right. I think, Javi, this is probably just payback for me trying to roast you and David.
Aiden in, by the way. Aiden.
And that's a big change. So we'll get to that Phoenix, Minnesota game here in a second. Let's talk Toronto and Portland. You touched on, Fred VanVleet being questionable. Obviously, that's a big piece. We saw Goran Dragic just appear back into the rotation and played 28 minutes last night after not playing since October 25th. So if Fred is out again, are you going back to Goran? And we've also got Precious Achiuwa questionable, Chris Boucher out. So maybe Kim Birch night here for Toronto. What are you looking at from the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean it's really depends on the news for Fred VanVleet. Like we saw, Siakam was supposed to be limited and he wasn't limited, so that's why we take coach speak for what it's worth. But if VanVleet's out, I'm going to load up on Siakam and Gary Trent. I think both are still phenomenal plays. Gary Trent revenge night. That's another one for you guys. So it's really just waiting on news for me, Zach. I think that this game is just all dependent on news. Because as of right now, I think Fred VanVleet is fine if he's in, but he's just a little expensive and just prefer. I'm pivoting everything to Lakers or Chicago if Dame is in or if Fred VanVleet's in. So
yeah, so I mean, I'm not too far off here. I think if Precious ends up out, then Kim Birch at 3K is a fine punt. I think you'll also see some Pascal Siakam at the 5.
Jimmy Butler out. Too early. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep. And
why so early?
We're getting all kinds of news. Bogdan Bogdanovic is listed available to play. You mentioned DeAndre Ayton, so we'll push a ranks update here shortly.
Damn it.
We also got some starting lineups. Javi, the Pelicans, no surprises. Graham, Alexander Walker, Hart, Ingram, and Valanciunas. Ingram still on that minutes limit, which I believe is at 30. The Celtics will start Schroeder, Smart, Tatum, Horford, and the Time Lorne. We talked about the Cavs lineup and the Magic. Gary Harris going to slide in for Jalen Suggs.
That is
two alongside.
Huge news. Sorry, go ahead.
No, what's that? Bam being listed questionable? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not even a midday questionable. That is a few hours before game
90 minutes before tip-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Maybe some Dwayne Dedmon now in our lives. I don't even think we need to discuss. We're not going to PJ Tucker on an 11-game slate. Markieff Morris still out with that terrible whiplash that he suffered last week. Duncan Robinson priced up, Javi. Absolutely blistering from the field against Utah last time out. But it's tough for me to get there, even if both of those guys are out, if Lowry and Hero are still in, and Duncan Robinson is priced close to 5K. But I wouldn't, I don't think I'd roll my eyes at anybody if I saw Duncan in some of their lineups. How would you prioritize the Heat, though? Jimmy out, and let's say we get Bam Adebayo out. What's the fire drill for you?
Dedmon. You got to play Dedmon. He's going to be the guy that he becomes one of the top value guys, in my opinion. And then the other guy is Tyler Hero. Like, if there's no Bam, Darius Bazley also a game time decision now. Was that? Yeah. That's new also. Guys, just build a late lineup. Like, just focus on some late news here. But Dedmon, Hero, those are going to be the two guys. I don't think I'll get to Duncan just because he's 4,700. I like Duncan when he's under 4K. So that's something that really wasn't on my radar. And then, I think that's it. It's going to be Hero and Dedmon. I can't see myself playing anybody else, really. Maybe some PJ Tucker, but there's a ton of value better than him. So I don't think you need to get there.
And UNC chiming in, talking about Omer Yurtseven. I don't think we can quite get there on this slate. Again, even with all this news coming out and we get more, Jeremiah Robinson Earl will remain in the Thunder starting lineup today. The Kings will start Fox, Halliburton, Barnes, Chimezi Metu, and Rashawn Holmes. So no surprises from Sacramento. Rockets will start Porter Jr., Green, Tate, Wood, and Tice. No surprises there. There you go. That was quick, Miami.
So early.
And early. So anybody who's not around to late swap appreciates that. But those of us who like to prey on that late news, not as thrilled. So we'll continue to update the ranks here as all this news rolls in from the 6:30 Eastern injury report. And Javi, we'll take this time to do two things. Number one, I wanted to wish. I'm sure he's hard at work still in the Superdraft offices, but it's Fast Eddie Fear's birthday, so shout out to Eddie. Happy birthday to the big guy. And
happy 30th.
Second, yeah, exactly. But the other thing I want to talk about is that since we're free on YouTube and Twitter this year, not everybody tuning in is an FTN Daily subscriber. So I would urge everybody, if you're struggling with your NBA DFS to start the year, you can check out ftndaily.com. Our NBA package includes a state-of-the-art optimizer that covers every slate every day. We've got proprietary player and ownership projections from Kyle Murray, who you saw on the last stream. Actually, I guess the people who are here for free didn't see Kyle Murray because the previous stream is behind the paywall. But Kyle's behind that, and he's getting help from our own Alex Blickel. We've also got NBA on-off splits, advanced DVP tools, which I love. The infamous FTN Daily NBA Premium Discord channel, where we're talking about all things NBA and a lot of Bean memes, and of course the rankings from Fast Eddie Fear himself. I also chip in on those with him. and we have all that stuff every single day. So the NBA pricing for FTN Daily starts at $49.99 per month. You can use the code FTNTV you see at the bottom of the screen on that little scroll. That gets you 15% off every single month. To repeat, that code is FTNTV equals 15% off every month for your subscription here at FTN Daily. So if you're not signed up yet, join us, get in the Discord, and tag me and Javi and let us know that we're here. We would love to have you. So as my phone continues to buzz with NFL news this time, Javi, we'll get that out of here. Do not need that at this point. At least, we'll hold off on the NFL news for 45 minutes when that NFL Showdown Monday night show stream goes live. We know those guys been crushing Showdown all year. Let's talk Phoenix and Minnesota. I know you spent a ton of time on that in the previous show, so we don't need to take a lot of time here. But with Ayton in 6'3", Javi, any interest in DeAndre Ayton? Interesting matchup against the Wolves.
No, I don't know how many minutes he's going to get. Plus, again, I'm playing this game as if it's going to blow out. You can't predict blowouts, but for me, I'm playing it that way. If I am going to play someone from the Suns, it's going to be Booker or Paul. Booker's been playing some great basketball lately. I think he's totally fine. Yeah, I think it's totally fine here to go either Paul or Booker, but I'll take the hot hand with Booker tonight more than anything else. And then the Minnesota side, it's Cat's birthday. He does get a little bit of a tougher matchup now. I wouldn't say I'm scared of Aiden's defense, but he's a little expensive for my taste. I just prefer to go up to Jokic. And then before that, after you're done talking there, I have a question for you. I have two questions for you, Zach. So I'll let you kick it off first.
Yeah. I mean, just with that Phoenix team, I think Ayton is kind of a sneaky GPP play, especially I'm sure there's a turbo slate on DK or FanDuel with those 8 p.m. games. I think at 6-3 on DraftKings especially, that's pretty attractive to me in tournaments. And I think that lends more credence to your idea that this game's going to blow out. You add DeAndre Ayton back to this team, replacing those Frank Kaminsky minutes and some of those JaVale McGee minutes. And that's going to be a big boon to this Phoenix team on both ends of the court. Will Barton is now a game time decision. I still don't think he plays. The fact that he was he was a late scratch yesterday with the back spasms or soreness, whatever it was, in warmups. I believe he was listed doubtful earlier in the day. So I would be surprised if they ran him out there tonight, already down. Michael Porter Jr. and obviously Jamal Murray still out with the knee. Not a ton of interest for me on that Minnesota side, Javi. I think if you wanted to roster a Towns, an Edwards, or Russell, it's fine. But none of those guys are, absolute priorities for me tonight. And I think on the Phoenix side too, somebody that I didn't mention, we talked about him a lot yesterday, is Cameron Payne. If we didn't have so much other value from the rest of this slate, I would have more interest in Cameron Payne than 100%. I do presently. So where should we go next? We've gotten a lot of news. It's kind of a whirlwind at this point. Pick a game, pick a player. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I guess two things. If you're doing two lineups, Zach, would you lock in Jokic? That's my question to you. And then after that, there's questions about the Heat that I can answer after.
Yeah, I think I would, man. Like, this guy played 28 minutes last night and should have triple-doubled, but they were up like 35 points on the Blazers. Like, he had 52 and three-quarter DK points in his 28 minutes. Just been producing at a massive rate this year. And with Porter Jr. out still, and maybe Will Barton again, like, what if you're projecting him, in my opinion, for anything less than 60 DraftKings points, I think you're too low on him. Just the way he's been producing throughout the season and the extra opportunity he has, really in all facets with those guys off the floor. So yeah, I would lock in Jokic in two lineups. I think I would probably be like 5 lineups in before I didn't have Jokic in a lineup. I think he's just a cut above the rest of the spend ups for me tonight. And you're paying for it. He's the highest priced player on the slate. But I still feel very strongly that I would want to have a lot of Jokic tonight. Hit me with some Miami questions.
So people are asking about what's the priority now with this. So I don't know. For me, Deadman and Hero are the priority for me. Hero should get the start again. He's chucking up the ball left and right. He looks like a better Dennis Schroeder. I don't know. They both look good to start off the year. But it's OKC. I am worried that Dort might be on him defensively, and I don't like to target Dort's defense, but it's Kyle Lowry or him. So Dort's going to cover one of these two guys, so maybe he shuts him down a little bit. But Hero, the confidence is booming. I just don't see why you in 5 lineups I'd play Hero in 4 out of 5. Dedmon, I'd probably do 3 of the 5. You lose a little bit of a center spot with him. That is a problem, but I think he's fine. He's gonna it's Jeremiah Robinson Earl. He's not going to play defense on them. Duncan Robinson. I honestly think Duncan Robinson 4,700. It's a little much for me. He is too scoring dependent. He's gonna see 40 minutes, like as long as it's not a blowout. But he's all dependent on his 3-point shot falling. That's why I don't like that price for him. And I think like under 4,700, under 4K, fine. Sign me up for Duncan. But at 4,700, he's got to hit a ton of shots here. Yes, OKC's defense isn't the best, but what if Dort covers Duncan? I don't think he would, but that's also an option there. And he's just too scoring dependent. So for me, it's Dedmon, it's Hero. I put Lowry 3rd, and then I put Duncan 4th, and that's probably the 4 I'd focus on. Lowry, another guy. I think he's very score dependent, but he can get other stats like assists and steals. So I think Lowry's perfectly fine. But if this game blows out, he's going to be the first one out. So for me, I do like Lowry. I'll have him in one of my 2. I have 2 main lineups and 10 GPP lineups. I'll have him in one of my 2. But the focus for me is Hero and Dedmon here.
Yeah, there's not much of a sample size this year with both Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo off the court. Kind of the people you would expect, the people you just listed benefiting from that. It's Dedmon and Hero for me. I agree. Dedmon can become a priority value at this point. At 3-2, we know the type of upside he possesses, and with Markieff Morris out, I think that does help him in terms of a minutes floor. Lowry just fine. I think he would probably be 3 for me. Then Duncan, again, priced up, has to shoot well, really to get on top of that 4.7 price tag. All those guys just fine. I think the kind of the sneaky value that you don't need to go here with a guy like THT at 3K, but Caleb Martin, guard forward eligible, probably going to get into the 20s in minutes tonight. He's also min price. So again, more of probably a turbo slate play rather than a main slate play is Caleb Martin. Let's see. Let's get to some of the questions. We've got a FanDuel question. Javi, are you playing on FanDuel tonight?
Sure. Yeah, I'm playing on FanDuel.
Well, let's pull up
I have one lineup there, so.
Let's pull up the prices here because Alan's asking Siakam or Mobley on FanDuel. And again, Siakam at 8.2, only power forward eligible, but that's just fine. He won't take up our center spot. I think if Precious Achiuwa misses, that's going to give me more interest in a guy like Pascal Siakam when you can save $700, roster Evan Mobley, who's probably going to play close to 40 minutes in this one against Boston. I think right now I'm leaning Mobley, but if you think, Alan, if you think that Precious Achiuwa is going to sit, I think you strongly consider getting Pascal Siakam in there, but just make sure you've got maybe some pivots as we go and some of that news rolls in from the late games. Would you be in lockstep with me there, Javi, or would you rather have Pascal?
Again, for me, it's a matter of Van Vliet news. I think I will lean Pascal though.
It's a good question from Brock here. He was asking where to go. Oh, man, my Discord freaking out here. He asked a 1v1v1.
I think I answered that one. Yeah.
It was Caruso, Herter, or I think it was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think it's Caruso for me, but it's close with Herter, right?
Yeah. And I was going to ask you that. What about Cedi Osman? Was it Cedi Osman?
Yeah,
God damn it. I'm going to get called out on this. God. Yeah. Osman versus Herter. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean. Well, I mean, Bogdan is in. Yeah, give me Cedi. He's going to get close to 30 minutes tonight with Jarrett Allen sideline. Still coming off the bench, but we saw him get 29 minutes in 2 of his last 3 games, and that was with Jarrett Allen in. So I would expect him to get a similar minutes load tonight. Guard forward eligible. Give me Chetty in that one. Last man in, Dedmon or THT? I think that's a really tough one now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I try to prioritize both personally. But if you have to choose one, it's going to be THT for me, just because I think the minutes are going to be higher, even though it's the second game of a back-to-back and the second game of his season. But it's close because, again, Dedmon is going to eat up alive JRE. So
I am still updating ranks here, and Throw was asking us, what's our favorite power forward play on DraftKings?
on DraftKings, so I gave him 2 options. So it's for me, it's Anthony. So in the 2 main lineups, I have 1 Anthony Davis and 1 Mobley. So those are the guys. I also have Kyle Kuzma in one of my lineups because I still think he's a phenomenal play, even with all the news that we're waiting on. And you can pivot around. So how I'm doing it today, guys, is I'm waiting on late news with minor exposure to the early games. And so I have one lineup that has, if we hear news that Dame's out, and then I have another lineup if we hear news that Fred VanVleet's out. So that's how I'm positioning it today. That's what I recommend too. And I basically did not lock in anybody except Jokic in both lineups. So I have Jokic in both. So that's why I asked you that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think with the power forward for me, Anthony Davis up top, going to be my favorite. I think Evan Mobley, where he's forward eligible, is a great way to spend 7-2 on DraftKings specifically. Who else here? Porzingis is kind of sneaky, but not a priority. Josh Hart, I have a little bit of interest in. Jayshawn Tate is fine, kind of in that mid-range, 5K range, getting down cheaper. Yeah, I mean, Chimezi Metu at 3.5. I'm sure I'm missing 1 or 2 here, but you can also check the ranks there, Throw, for all those forward opinions that I have compiled with Eddie there. Another question here. Let's see. Struggling with Dedmon, AD, Mobley, Siakam, which one not to play? I like AD here. So Allen has to leave one out of Dedmon, AD, Mobley, and Siakam. I think for me right now, as it stands, Pascal Siakam is the one that I would leave out.
Yeah.
Are you with me on that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so if the Toronto guys we think could sit, specifically Precious Achiuwa, would you Birch or would you Dedmon?
I would Dedmon. Again, I feel like Birch is not going to get a ton of minutes here. Dedmon won't either, but for me, I like the matchup more for Dedmon. Plus, there's not really who's going to back up Dedmon today. Is it Yurt? I don't know. I also think that they could run some small ball here from the Heat. We've seen Bam, I think, out once, but Jimmy Butler was in. So that's something to keep in mind. But I still lean Dedmon for me.
Yeah, I would also go Dedmon just because we know that Pascal Siakam can also play the 5, and I think Birch would get some solid time there. But I'd rather just go Dedmon against OKC.
That's a good one. Joe's asking you a question.
Yeah. Somebody we didn't talk about, Bones Highland. I know there's been a lot of talk about Bones in the Discord today. If Will Barton remains out, I'm absolutely fine playing as much Bones as you want to. I would still obviously prioritize Talon Horton-Tucker, and at this point, I'm prioritizing Dwayne Dedmon in terms of those guys that are 3.5 and below on DraftKings. But for anybody that wasn't familiar with Bones Highland when we were touting him at the beginning of the season and he was having trouble breaking into the rotation, now you see why we were so high on Bones Highland, breaking 30 DK points in each of his last 2 games, averaging 22 minutes in those 2. I think I would probably rather play Caruso. I think the minutes are going, he could play almost double the minutes that Bones does. We still haven't seen Bones Highland break 23 minutes. That was his season high last night against Portland in the blowout. So I would still prefer Caruso if you have the cash to get up to him. I don't want to skip over Average Joe's question here. Pick 2, Richardson, Caruso, or Simons. I see you said Caruso and Simons. I think that is also the way I would go, but I don't want to overlook Josh Richardson, who we didn't really talk about before when we were talking about Boston and Cleveland at 3.5. Been getting a ton of minutes. at least relative to what we've been used to out of Josh Richardson out of the last 18 months, averaging 30 minutes per game in his last 3 and right around 24 DK points. So at 3.5 guard forward eligible, he's somebody that I would have some significant exposure to, not a guy that I'm, getting in 50+% of my lineups, but I would try to get over the field on a value like Josh Richardson. Another guy we didn't touch on, and then we'll get back to questions. Beef Stew. We touched on him yesterday, talking about how we want to chase guys that project really well and let down the field one day, and then we can go right back the next, and his ownership will be lower. The price came up after he, successfully put up 33 DraftKings points in 32 minutes against Toronto 2 nights ago. One thing that's been missing the last 2 games is the rebounding upside for Isaiah Stewart. I think he's live for a double-double here, something that we haven't seen all year. And at 5K, I think he's going to be a really low-owned player tonight on this 11-game slate. So I don't think he's somebody you have to play a ton of to get over the field, but that's something I have interest in doing. Getting back to the questions here, Dinwiddie, another team we haven't talked a lot about. Dinwiddie or Kuzma. For me, it's very much Dinwiddie, Javi. I wrote up Dinwiddie in the Superdraft article this morning. Over there, he's a 1.35x multiplier. And on DraftKings, I believe he's 7.2. But I'm not scared off by that price tag, and I'm encouraged by that multiplier on Superdraft. The 2 games that Bradley Beal has missed this season, Dinwiddie's averaging 28.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 7.5 assists. Obviously, that's a small sample, but 145 minutes with Bradley Beal off the court this year, 31.9% usage rate for Spencer Dinwiddie. So I think he's a really strong play, and I think 10 times out of 10, that may come back to bite me, but I would go with Spencer Dinwiddie. How about you?
Yeah. Yep, I agree too. Dinwiddie's a priority. I think he's too underpriced for the matchup he has. Pelicans bottom 5 in defensive efficiency against the guards. So I do like Spencer Dinwiddie. What about your boy Metu? He's starting again today. You going back to him with his good game?
Yeah, man. Chimezie Metu, a fine value. I think he's only probably going to play low to mid-20s in minutes here, especially with guys like Terrence Davis, Tyrese Halliburton coming back in the lineup. I know they were last game as well, and Terrence Davis only saw single-digit minutes, but Mo Harkless also available off the bench. I think there's just so many ways that can go wrong. It's hard for me to get Metu as a priority value, but he would certainly make my player pool at 3.5 and getting the start again against Detroit. Jake was asking, do we think Lillard plays tonight? Jake thinks he does. I would lean like a 51-49 that he doesn't. I think that the abdominal injury is the injury that we've heard whispers about why he's been shooting so poorly. And I still have, I guess just a little bit of juice on the idea that it's kind of falling apart there between Portland and Damian Lillard. I don't know if that's just speculation on my part. I don't know if that's a factor in this, but I do think he's legitimately banged up with that abdominal injury. So I wouldn't be surprised if they sat him out here again tonight. Next question from Romulus. Shout out one of my few Spurs fan buddies in the chat here. RJ Hampton and Mobley, or Tyler Hero and Kevin Huerter on DK. I think it's that second one for me now because RJ Hampton isn't getting the start. If he was going to start over Gary Harris, I was going to have a little bit more interest. He's still definitely in play as a low-owned value, but with that Heat news and Huerter getting the start, I'm on that second one. Are you with me on that?
Yeah. I think it's pretty easily too because of Hero.
Gotcha.
Spurs suck, by the way, in case you're curious.
Yeah, see, Anthony, that breaks the rules. When you remind me twice in a day, it loses its luster. The magic is gone. You only get one per day.
Damn.
We were talking about Huerter. Would you rather Huerter or would you rather Bones?
So it all depends on Will Barton news. If he's out, then yeah, I love Bones a lot more, but I don't think we're going to hear it. So I would stick with Huerter for now. Again, another guy that's very scoring dependent, but he's under 4K. So that's why I like him more than Duncan.
Yeah, I think I'm with you as well. The fact that Will Barton's upgraded to that game time decision, I still think he sits, but the production has been, even for as much as I love Bones, the production's been a little bit higher than I think we can expect in the long run from a guy like Bones, and Herder getting the start again with Hunter out. I'm with you on that. Still on Bones if Barton plays, yes, sir. Kristaps Porzingis at 7K has to be enticing. I agree, Joe. I think he got an 8 in the rankings. Been producing at a fine rate when he's been healthy this season, and I think he's going to carry very low ownership. So I am absolutely fine with people playing Porzingis in tournaments. Javi, what's your take on KP tonight?
I just don't like the Dallas side of things today. That's my thing. I think he's a fine play and he's way too cheap, but for me, it's not something that I want to focus on. So I don't love the matchup, but again, he should never be priced this cheap. But with Luka there and not really siding on the Dallas side of things, I'm just not landing on it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Would you fade Dinwiddie and roster Lowry? And then if we get Dame news, you could get to CJ McConnell and get off Lowry.
Dang, man, that's tough for me. Repeat the question one more time.
So Easy B's asking, would you fade Dinwiddie to roster Lowry? And then if we get Dame sitting news, you can go from Lowry to CJ McConnell.
100%. That's what I would do. 100%.
Yeah, I think I'm with that as well, especially if you don't have a guy like Tyler Hero in your lineup. Lowry is somebody you could get exposure to, and you got to hope then that we get that Damian Lillard news early to make that pivot to CJ. So I don't hate that at all. Siakam and Simons or Porzingis and Isaiah Stewart. I think for me, You go ahead, Javi.
No, you go. I was just looking.
I would say I'm leaning the second one just because the fact that even though I do think Dame sits, I mentioned I think it's kind of a 51-49 split there. So I would have much more interest in rostering Porzingis and Isaiah Stewart, two guys that I think are very solid tournament plays in large field GPPs tonight.
Yep, I think that's solid advice. My thing is, though, Siakam and Simons, I would lean that if we get the news. But I don't know if we'll get the news in time. Like, if Van Vliet's out and Lillard's out, Siakam and Simons to the moon, and by a wide margin. But if we don't hear that news, I would just stick with Porzingis and Stewart for now.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. We're coming down to it. About a minute and a half left until we lock. We'll have 3 games going off here at lock. But, Javi, I know since you were on the unexpected back-to-back, we've got a hard out here right after lock. And then we'll toss it to those NFL guys breaking down the Rams and the Niners. So about 90 seconds, everybody in the FTN NBA Discord. Again, if you are watching on Twitter or YouTube and you're throwing questions at us, I know it's not a ton of people, but I've seen some questions in those channels. You want your questions answered, all those questions answered in the FTN NBA Discord channel that's included with either monthly or annual NBA subscriptions here at FTN Daily. FTN TV gets you 15% off either of those packages. Just saying. Under a minute now until this slate locks. And I see a couple people typing maybe some last minute questions here. I see Anthony asking Levine or CJ. I think if price isn't a factor, I would rather get Levine at this point, and you can always pivot down because those are both the late games.
Yep, for sure. I think if Dame's out, you lock in CJ though. Yep. If not, then just play Levine.
I agree. And another guy that I have a lot of interest in did not work out last night, but Yusuf Nurkic, if Dame is out. Really, if Dame is in too, down to 6'6", Javi. And you think about this Toronto front court, especially if Precious is out, him going up against Kim Birch or Pascal Siakam, Nurk has those guys by 2 or 3 inches respectively and 60 pounds on both of those guys. So I think Nurk, somebody that could eat, again, in probably limited minutes, but he's somebody that I have interest in on the main slate and a lot of interest in on the late slate. So that is lock. And Javi, I know that we got to get you out of here. So we will not do an ownership game today, but I will be in the FTN Daily NBA Discord along with everybody else throughout the night, as we always are, but especially on these lengthy slates. 2 more games locking at 7:30, 4 at 8, and then the 2 games for the late slate. We'll be here for it all, and I'm sure the tilting will start in about 5 minutes here. One of our favorite pastimes, the first quarter tilt. So,
yes,
Javi, man, I appreciate you jumping on last second with me here. What you got going on tonight? You playing any NFL or what's going on?
I got 2 main NBA lineups and 10 GPP lineups. Just going NBA today. Got some esports going on. So check out my articles there on FTN Daily. Esports season's the best. And I got softball playoffs in a little bit, Zach. So I got to go win a softball game. Hit some more home runs.
Okay. Well, good luck in your softball game, man, and good luck to everybody else. I see a couple questions popping up in the Discord. I'll get to those, after we sign off here. So appreciate everybody tuning in, whether you're an FTN subscriber or you're catching us on Twitter and YouTube. This has been the Monday edition of the Dream Stream, presented to you by Superdraft Daily Fantasy. For Javi, I'm Zach, and for Thomas, our producer extraordinaire, behind the glass, as always,
let's get these beans.
Good night.